Welcome to another Service Management Leadership Podcast. I have a great guest. Jonathan Wafford is with us. And Jonathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a great Friday.
Thank you for joining us. Jonathan and I were in a class together recently, and I was like, why don't you come on the podcast? So welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. So I always ask, I won't say always, I try to ask the same question to new guests on the podcast, just because I love hearing the background. And the question is, how'd you get started in service management? And I ask this because none of us went to school for it. None of us, when we were 13, dreaming of what our dream job will be, go, I want to be a change person, or I want to be a service management person.
Yep.
We couldn't even spell ITIL at the time. But what brought you into the world of service management?
It was happenstance. I stumbled upon it, really. So I just graduated with my bachelor's degree. And so I got a bachelor's degree in business admin with healthcare management specialization. And so it's like, I don't know what I want to do in it. So it's like, I'm just going to get a job in contact center. So I got a job in the contact center ground floor, and just to kind of learn the healthcare and see, okay, what area did I want to get into? And my manager at the time was like, I have an opportunity for you. It may not pay that well, and there's going to be a lot of things we ask you to do, but you're pretty good on the phones. You're pretty good with people. You can figure things out pretty quickly. And he's like, have you ever heard of ITIL? And I was like, I have not. He's like, okay, go look up ITIL4 Foundation. And are you interested? I was like, sure, why not? It's better than being on the phones. I can figure stuff out. So that's how I got into it. And the reason that it interested me is because you use the creative side of your brain. Because a lot of times, well, most of the time, you go into a conversation or a situation and they're like, hey, I have this problem. What's your ideas? Can you figure it out? And then you have to like kind of process in your brain and go, okay, I think this. And so it uses that creativity, because like growing up, I always wanted to be a singer. So I wanted to be an international singer and stuff. And I enjoy that artsy side, poetry, writing poetry and singing. And so I was trying to figure out, I was like, well, how do I put bread on the table? And when I heard of ITIL and service management and delivery and all that other stuff, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I can still be creative and figure stuff out. And there's a baseline that helps me along the way. And you can help people in the process, which I love doing. So that's how I got started.
That's awesome. And I've always thought that what we do is unique to the world of technology, because what we do is more art than science. Where most of the rest of technology is all science and very little art. But ours, the situation made every day, like there's no two changes the same, no two incidents the same. And so it does take a little bit of understanding, and that's also where you differentiate the quality of whoever the practitioner is, right? It's the ability to do that.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it really pays to have I don't know if a dynamic personality, but your ability to work with others, because you interact with so many different people that some may interact with people on a regular basis. Some might just interact with a computer on a regular basis or a server.
Yes.
So, it's like dealing with different people and building those relationships as you go along, so you can kind of influence and improve stuff.
Oh, yes. And the rest of the people in IT don't exactly love and embrace us in service management. So we need to help manage those relationships and all that sort of thing. So that's a great point. So you recently penned a blog for Axios called Combining ITIL4 and Agile Best Practices for the Customer Focus. Can you tell us why you decided to write that?
Yeah. I've worked on ITIL teams a lot more than I've worked on Agile teams, but it seems like they're oil and vinegar. It's like they're hard to mix, and you try to get them to mix, and they always separate at the end.
Yes,
and
always.
So it's just, and like the teams I've worked on are ITIL V3, because 4 just came out, and and it's new to people, and not everybody is crazy about new, but from the experiences with ITIL v3, like groups working, they're very about the structure. They think that, hey, you know structure, this is what we need to do. You start with A, you go to B, go to C, go to D, you know do not change that. Okay, good. you know and then you have your agile teams that are like just very freewheeling, kind of, hey, we're going to do this and call it agile. So it's kind of like the opposites of both sides, but there's a lot of similarities between the two. And I think it was about kind of trying to open up people's minds. And I think in the first part I mentioned a light bulb moment, like getting people to kind of go, ah, okay, so there are similarities between the two now. Like ITIL4 is like, you see a lot of DevOps, Agile, a bunch of different other methodologies in there that are kind of mixed into it. And I think it's a really great way to start to try to fuse those together, fuse those sides, because they're better. I mean, because we're all better together than apart.
Yes.
So, and at the end of the day, we want the same thing, which is we all have customers that we're taking care of. And if customers didn't exist, none of us would exist, regardless of the position in the company, from the
Yes.
CEO to like a contact center associate or HR, anybody. So it's like trying to find those commonalities between the two, and really just bringing them together on the same page, which is easier said than done, but it's still a good process to go through, I think, for people.
Yes. And on that note, I think that, and I appreciate you writing that, because what we need to do more even isn't the solution, it's just to have more conversations. We need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
have conversations about what that looks like, because it looks different in every organization, both on the
yep,
Agile and the ITIL side.
yep,
And many organizations struggle with doing both ITIL and Agile, and both are present in almost every technology organization. What is
yep.
your advice to those organizations that are trying to blend the Agile side with the ITIL side, or vice versa? What's your recommendation?
Find the common points, because if you look at Scrum and Agile and DevOps and then ITIL4, you'll see a lot of similarities. For instance, transparency. Transparency is listed through each and every one of those. Adaptive. Adaptive is in ITIL4. It's talked about in Scrum Agile. And so it's finding a lot of those commonalities between the different areas, if you were, and say, hey, this value creation, ITIL4 is really embracing value creation, tracing this value through. Agile teams, you guys talk about value, and value is one of your key components. Okay, so hey, let's start there. It's starting those, like, the common points to build conversation, and then as you build the conversation and those teams work together, there'll be more camaraderie, and it's not going to be like very quick. It's not going to be like, oh, I flipped on a light switch sort of thing at first. It's more of a journey, that you go through.
And it is a journey, because I think you're not only transforming what work is and how it gets done, but also the people along the way to bring those groups together.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. It's because that is what I tell people all the time with ITIL4. It's a mindset shift, and talking to DevOps teams, they talk about that mindset shift. The CI/CD pipeline. It's a shift of, hey, okay, now we have, coding standards that we're going to check all of our code against, and then we're going to promote it out very quickly and release and all that jazz. And so I'm like, well, that's perfect. Um, and also the other thing is we've always done it this way.
Yes.
That's the other big thing. Well, we're a DevOps team. We've always done it this way. So, yeah, ITIL3, ITIL v3 camps, they're still very much that way. They're hardcore. Like, we've done it this way, but it's like, hey, let's embrace 4. ITIL4 is here. This is about adaptive, value creation, co-creating value between different peoples. And you come into a room, you have an idea, you won't walk out with that idea as the result. You'll walk out with an amalgamation of different ideas coming together and your solution, so.
I agree. And I want to defend the V3 people out there in this is
Yeah.
the way we've always done it, because
Yeah.
I think they have three things working against them in terms of moving. And one is entire organizations are set up on V3, especially as they outsource service
Yep.
operations. And so now you're asking them to work within themselves and with the Agile team. So it's difficult. Number two is that most of the ITSM tools, if not all, are set up on V3. And
Yep.
and lastly, it's prescriptive. And we all like prescriptive, other than being a guy assembling a Christmas present, or assembling something and going by the directions. We really like having the order of things. We like being able to step one, step two, step three.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to defend the ITIL V3 people out there, because it is easier that way. And we do understand. But to your point, we got to move forward. And so somebody's got to build those bridges.
Yeah, it's a very difficult conversation, because that still works. That's how things are working. And with budgets and trying to plan your costs for the year ahead, it's easier, it's better that way, because because like in Prince 2 Agile, for instance, you plan your budget, or Prince 2 in general, you plan your budget. Okay, there you go. We spend it. Here's the time. But Agile, it's like, okay, flex, here's the amount. Do you need more time? Okay, here's some more. So it's a lot harder to plan with that. So it's something that you got to kind of work through with the teams, and get to a happy result for people. That's a kind of happy medium, because that perspective or prescriptive approach is it's planned, and it's very nice to have looking forward.
Yes,
So.
and you bring up a great point. I've never heard an organization that says we love Agile, we are all Agile, do Agile with their budgeting, with their hiring, with all the stuff that they really are claiming to be Agile with. They just mean we're iterative on how we put code into production. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, it's usually with dev teams or project teams. And even the project teams, their budget is still waterfall approach, because you have to plan, because they like that plan ahead. We have a certain amount of money. This is what we're spending. This is all that we can do, instead of kind of the Agile project manager where, well, it's going to take us a couple extra months. Here you go. Here's your money.
Yeah.
Here's
5 sprints of money. Now do what you can, and then we'll talk, right? Nobody
exactly.
likes that.
Nope. Because it's just money flying out the door, at least in people's heads. I mean, there are some controls that you can put around that, and it's just, you kind of have to work through and see what works best, but yeah.
Oh yes. So let's talk about the end of that title said for customer focus. And so I like ITIL4 with the customer journey, and I'm a big experience person, because I think that we've moved as a society away from what we're consuming to our experience consuming it. I mean, whether it's food at a restaurant or whatever. So how does the customer focus piece fit into that?
I think it's very important. I think it's one that not everybody thinks about or realizes, because like if you're meeting with someone who keeps a server running, they don't always think about the customer. They're just concerned about X and fixing Y.
Right.
Is X still running? Okay. Did Y break? Okay, I have to fix it. Okay. But I like the customer journey, and I like it talks about touch points and moments of truth, those interactions. Like, what touch points do you have with a customer? Okay, list them out. Where can we improve? And a lot of companies don't do too much of it. I don't think they do enough of it, because it would really help the whole entire journey. Because like one thing leads to another. It's just not like just you stop at a gas station, pick something up and go. It's something that you're on a journey with people on. It's not something like a one and done sort of thing. It's like, hey, you're our customer. We want to bring the value to you that you're expecting. And if we don't, then we want you to tell us, and like have the I don't know if it's openness or freedom to tell us, and have that relationship with your customers. And once your customers know they care about, or know you care about them, they'll keep coming back for business. There's a quote somewhere about that. Oh, is that the John Maxwell one, or?
Well, there's a
People don't.
Mark Twain that says people won't care what you know until they
Yeah, there
know
you go.
that you
That one.
care about them, or something like that.
Yeah, people don't know how much you care until they care how much you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and that's so true. The other thing I like about it is like the band of visibility that ITIL4 talks about, and like the narrowing of that band and the expanding of that band. I think it's really good too as you go along the journey.
Oh, yes. And we also have to think that the better relationship we have, the more we can withstand a negative experience.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah.
and so that relationship building and that understanding, and people know that you really do care about their experience, really goes a long way, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like criticism. I mean, because if someone I didn't know walked up to me and gave me a criticism, hey, you should do this better. And I'm like, what the crap? I'm not going to listen to you, but if someone I know that I'm really good friends with comes up and says, hey, I think you should change this, I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll think. Let's talk this through, because I know them. We have that trust in the relationship. So yeah, I definitely agree with it, because I think I don't know if customers are sometimes fearful to give honest feedback, or sometimes it may be taken the wrong way by a company, when it is given. So when they try to process it through, they're like, oh yeah, they said this, but whatever. It's just not something that, yeah, we're going to pursue or anything. But if they said it, it's something that's of value. So if 90% of your customers value it, then that should be something that's on your list, that should be added to your objectives, and you guys need to discuss internally and work through.
Yep. And the customers, what they think of as value is always going to be changing. And we have to
Yeah.
be comfortable with that, because if you ask
Yep.
me in my personal life and my relationships, what I think of as value is always changing. And so
Yeah.
when we talk about experience, it's a buzzword in today's IT world, and we
Yeah.
see those everywhere. And people that don't care about it are talking about experience because their customers are talking about experience.
Yep.
How can we use ITIL to help stakeholders realize their desired outcomes and help them co-create value?
So there's something that ITIL4 talks about. It's empathy. It talks
Mhm.
about service empathy and empathizing with your customers. I think empathy is so big, because it's about placing yourself in the person's shoes that you're talking to. So it's just, I mean, hey, we're a company, we do this business. Okay, perfect. Well, but our customers are in this business, but they're using our tool. So okay, let's place ourselves in their shoes. And then that it also talks about, there's personas as well that you can
Mhm.
build for your customers. And then it's like putting yourself into that persona and then talking from their perspective. You look at all the feedback, you put yourself in their shoes and talk through, like, as a customer of this company, yeah, I think this, because this is my persona, this is the feedback we got. So you talk through it. It's kind of like um it's like practicing well, in the context, and when you're on calls and stuff, before you actually get on calls and you talk to people, they have you practice with somebody else, and so they give you mock examples of irate customers, really nice customers. Okay, say no to this customer, but you have to do, it talks through that. So it's I think that's excellent too in those situations. Like, you go through those mock run throughs of, I'm customer X, I'm speaking for them, now everybody else in the team, let's talk through it, because it's really putting yourself in their shoes.
Now, like you brought up personas, because we should treat marketing customers, internal
Yeah.
users, stakeholders, different than accounting. We can't treat them all the same because they each have different needs. And for example, accounting may have, especially in publicly traded US companies, have closing at the last 5 days of a month, or first 5 days of the next month. And so we have to treat them all uniquely within those personas.
Yeah, it's kind of it goes to that creative versus analytical piece, because there's like analytical side of business where it's just you go through a list and boom, 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 boom. And then there's that creative side where you have personas, you have the relationships where, nothing's predetermined, you have to work through. And it is definitely a customer journey, because, you're journeying through it and learning as you go. And, you're going to make mistakes. That's fine. Pick yourself up, try it again, so it's just keep going.
Oh yeah, especially when we overlay that with our value streams, because the value
Yes.
streams are going to be nimble. If I can use that word, they are going to change. I'm trying to avoid the agile with the little a's for to avoid
Oh yeah,
confusion.
yeah, yeah.
But the customer journey and our value streams should be intertwined, I would think.
Yeah, they're adaptable. They're to the situation that you're in. And that's been something that's been a struggle to kind of try to explain to people, that adaptive part of your value streams. And, as you go along, it's going to adjust and change depending on circumstances or what happens, or, it's better to use this tool, or we only have the budget for this tool, but we'd like to use the other tool. And that's
Right.
another thing that you always run into. So it's like you have to adapt and go, okay, I wanted to use this, but I'm going to use this now. So yeah, it'll still work. Let's fill in the gaps. Let's adapt. Let's change it up.
If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with,
Yeah,
is what I
exactly.
heard in there.
Yep. It's all about just embracing the now, and still keeping in mind that future that you want to work towards. And I mean, it's like any other challenge you get in life, because I mean, as I was going for my bachelor's, and then I went for my MBA and master's and stuff, there's so many challenges that came along the way. But I was like, I really want this end result. I have this goal. I have this vision right here. So I'm going to achieve this vision, and I'm just going to, work through whatever comes my way. I'm going to adapt. There's a Bruce Lee always says, "Be water."
Yes.
That's one of my key things. I have a hat with "Be water" on it and stuff, and I have a T-shirt and stuff. But it's because he talks about, you put water into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. You freeze it, becomes an ice cube. You heat it up, becomes vapor. You cool it down again, it becomes water again. So it's very adaptable, and it's like throughout life, throughout the changes, throughout any challenges coming your way, just be water. That's the other thing, businesses and companies, it'd be good. It's hard to learn, it's hard to do, but just kind of adapt with what comes. If it was always done this way before, why not try a different way?
Oh yeah.
Let's test it out. If it doesn't work, yeah, let's go back to whatever. So it's about that adaptability. That's a big thing, like that mindset shift. That's what I always try telling people about, that mindset shift. It's huge, and it affects just everything you do and throughout whatever job you're doing.
And even how we do it. So Jonathan, thank you
Yeah.
for joining us on the podcast and sharing your wisdom and your thoughts and writing those blog articles. I'd like you to, and I'd like to encourage you to continue those. We need to have more conversations. I think everything's changing at a fast pace. We do what we do on this side just to help.
Yep.
Let's have more conversations. Let's have
Yeah.
conversations. Any parting words?
Oh, more conversations is absolutely a must. I mean, with COVID and everything like that hitting, it's the in-person conversations, at least in IT, has dropped, significantly, I would say, because a lot of what we do can be done virtually, you know. So yeah, those conversations are important, and being open and working with others that may not think the same way you think. Be open to change, be adaptable to whatever challenges come your way. I think that's big. Those are big. Yeah.
That's a great way for us to end this. And we thank you for coming on, Jonathan, and sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.